Hey guys, Dr. Dave here again. I'm in the kitchen today, and you probably don't know, but Dr. Dave used to be Chef Dave. For years I was a chef in New York, and started out as an apprentice and worked my way all the way up the kitchen until I became a chef. So I know my way around the kitchen pretty well now. It's just a hobby, but I'd like to share some recipes with you as we go along. Tonight we're going to make scones, cream currant scones, which are the classic scone. So what I've done is I've set the oven to 425 degrees, and it's preheating right now. So that's what you do first off. And then you get a big mixing bowl like this, and I'm going to push this down here. So then you get a measuring cup. This is 1 cup right here, 1 cup. You measure out 2 cups of flour into the big bowl. I use organic pastry flour. Let's see if you can see that there. And it really does matter what kind of flour you use. You can use all-purpose flour, but you won't get the best results. The big secret here is that you don't want to have flour that has a lot of gluten to be activated, because gluten is what's going to make your dough tough. So you don't want to work your dough too much, and you want to have flour that's low gluten. So you can even go to stores and buy non-glutinous flours made from coconuts and things like that. It's pretty expensive, but it's like $10 a bag, but it doesn't have any gluten. So sometimes I use like half of that and half of the pastry flour just to lower the gluten content. Anyway, so 2 cups of flour. There we go. So if you're wondering why pastry flour is different from regular flour, it's ground much finer. So there we go. Then we're going to cut in butter. Now, when a recipe calls for you to cut in butter, usually it asks for cold butter. Sometimes I make an exception to that, but tonight I'm not going to. So I'm going to use this. It also matters very much what kind of butter you use. You know, regular butter from, if you're in the United States, regular butter that you buy in the store has a pretty high water content. If you're in Europe, or you're good, you know, you have really great butter there in Europe. But here in the United States, we have to go get what we call European style butter. Now, it's a little more expensive. It's here in San Francisco, it's like $4 a pound. But it's totally worth it. It has a much higher fat content and a lower water content, which is going to make your baked goods much better, especially something like scones, which relies heavily on the butter-flour ratio. So I have here Kerrygold pure Irish butter, and this is the best European style butter I found, because it's made from grass-fed cows, which actually does make a difference. Just like with honey, when you can, you know, depending on what flowers the bees have used the pollen from, affects the taste of the honey. So with butter, what the cows are eating when they give their cream affects the taste of the butter. So grass-fed cow butter is really the best, and somehow the grass in Ireland is just wonderful. So they have the best butter. That's just the way it is. So you get a knife, and you're going to cut about 1/3 of a cup, or 6 tablespoons of butter. And we'll do that now. Sorry you can't see my face, but you probably don't miss it. I use a little crappy webcam, because that's all I got right now, so so be it. You can see the essential things. So that's about 6 tablespoons of butter right there, and so you see I've cut it into sections, and then I'm going to stack these sections, and I'm cut it into tiny, tiny little squares. All right. And then I'm going to cut these so they're tiny, tiny little squares. Okay. Then to the flour mixture, I'm going to add 3½ tablespoons of baking powder. Okay. A pinch of salt, and the salt is really not for taste. It activates the rising agent in the baking powder just that much more, so that's a enhancing feature. And then a few tablespoons of sugar. I don't use too much. You can use more if you like them sweet, but I just use like 3 or so. All right. Then I'm going to add my cut up butter to this dry mixture. Let's see if you can see how that is. And then I'm going to take a pastry cutter. It's just, it's got some prongs on it. If you don't have a pastry cutter, you could use a wire whisk and just use the ends of it like that. Or if you don't have a wire whisk, you can use a fork and a knife. Everyone has a fork and a knife. So let me show you fork and a knife first. And you just take the fork and you're pressing the butter into the flour. And this is called cutting the butter into the flour. So you're just pressing it in like that. And then you're taking the knife and cutting it like that so that it comes off the fork, and then you just keep doing that. It's faster with the pastry cutter, so I'm going to go to that. So we're just cutting up the pastry into the dry mixture. I'm sorry, cutting up the butter into the dry mixture. And that. So you want to get it looking like it's sort of grainy, like there's little pellets of butter flour. When I get it, I'll show you a close-up so you can see what it's supposed to look like. So my plan is for this series, which is going to be posted on Tuesday evenings, I have a lot of guys, friends of mine who can't really cook, and you know who you are. And I'm going to share some recipes that are good for, bachelors or couples, or, even sometimes, if you're having that dinner party. I have some things that are a little fancier. So this is, but many of my recipes are going to use a lot of shortcuts that guys on the go, can use, make healthy, good meals for themselves, so they don't have to buy frozen dinners, God forbid, or takeout all the time. So this is what it should look like. It's just kind of grainy, right? So that's the butter's all cut in, all right? Then I'm going to add black currants. Now, if you don't have black currants, you can use raisins, but currants is the classic way. Or if you want a different flavor, here's where you do it. You can add like cinnamon and almonds, or you could add fresh blueberries or cran raisins, you know, whatever you want. I used dried cherries once. It was really good. But today we're using currants. So there they are. And just mix them in a little bit. So you don't want to play around with the dough too much. Next comes 1 egg. I'm just going to crack the egg. Put this here into the mixture, and then about a ½ cup of cream. I didn't have any cream on hand, so I'm using buttermilk, which also will work. A lot of people have strong feelings about cream versus buttermilk. I'm sort of whichever, you know. So tonight is going to be buttermilk, about a ½ cup, and do it. Then you take the spoon that you measured everything with, and you just mix it all together. Again, try and keep the mixing process brief, because the more you mix, the tougher your dough gets. All right, so I'm not a big measurer, so I'm seeing that I might need a little more liquid, but just a little bit. So I'm going to do that now. This will be just a splash because it's just not quite wet enough. Okay. And conversely, if it's too wet and it's all sticky and everything, you can add a little more flour to get the right consistency. So it's very forgiving that way. You can, you know, if you didn't measure right, if it didn't come out quite the way you wanted it, you can add more flour or milk, cream or buttermilk, so that you get the right consistency. Then I'm going to take the dough out and form it. And by forming it, I just roll it in a ball and then pat it down so that it's this sort of viscous cylinder. Right. Now you can leave it plain, or you could do like an egg wash on the top, which will make it browner. I like to just put a little bit of granulated sugar on the top. Not too much, just to make it sort of frosty. There we go. Then we're going to cut our discus into 6 pieces, sort of like you'd cut a pie. And that'll create 6 wedges. Get rid of the bowl. Get a cookie sheet. Take your stick of butter that you didn't use all of and butter the cookie sheet. Then we're going to place the wedges on the sheet one by one. Wedge number 2. And see, we're placing them far apart because they're going to expand. So you need the space between them to let the dough expand, otherwise they'll sort of bunch in on each other and you'll have one huge mess of scones. You won't have individual ones. Okay. And here's what that looks like. And then we're going to stick that in the oven for 12 minutes. Again, the oven is set to 425 degrees. And so 425 degrees in the oven, 12 minutes. I'm going to set the timer now. And we're going to wait. And in 12 minutes, we'll have some scones. Okay, so after 12 minutes, I'm going to take the scones out, and then we're going to cut them and put them on a plate, and you'll see what they look like. All right? So you can see that they kind of do expand, like I said, and clump together a little bit. So what I do is I take a knife and I just cut to separate them, and then just slide the knife underneath them, and they come off. And there you have cream currant scones. So I put the ingredients down below this so that you can have them. If you enjoyed this, please subscribe to my channel. We're going to do this every Tuesday, and thanks for checking me out, and take care.